I walked into our new house and heard my husband whispering, "She must never find out." His voice was low, tense, and urgent. The kind of tone he never used with anyone, not even during arguments, not even when life got hard. I froze halfway across the empty living room, my hand still resting on a half-unpacked box, my heartbeat suddenly hammering in my ears. The house was supposed to be our fresh start. New walls, new memories, new promises. But the second I stepped inside, the air felt heavy, like something was already wrong, like the echo of his words carried more weight than the walls could hold. I listened. I held my breath, and for a moment, all I heard was silence. Too perfect, too deliberate, as if the house itself was waiting for me to move. Then his footsteps came slowly down the hallway. Not relaxed, not casual. Careful, controlled. When he turned the corner and saw me, his expression flickered for a split second. A flash of something like panic, or maybe guilt, before he smoothed it over with a practiced smile. "Hey," he said, like nothing at all had happened. "You're home early." I wanted to ask him who he'd been talking to. I wanted to demand the truth. But something in his eyes stopped me. Not fear of being caught, but fear of what would happen if he told me. So instead, I forced a smile and played along, telling myself that I had imagined the tension, that moving stress was making me paranoid, that love meant trust, and trust meant stepping back. But deep down, a quiet voice whispered that something was beginning, something I wasn't ready for. Days went by, and the house never felt quite right. At night, I heard faint sounds, footsteps in the attic, soft clicking noises behind the walls, the quiet closing of a door I was certain I'd left open. My husband brushed it off, saying, "Old houses settle, wiring expands and contracts, imagination fills gaps." But each time I brought it up, he grew a little more agitated, as if my questions cornered him in ways he couldn't explain. One night, unable to sleep, I walked into the kitchen for water and found him standing in the middle of the room, in the dark. No phone in his hand, no reason to be there, just standing, staring at the floor. When I flipped on the light, he jumped violently, like I'd dragged him out of a nightmare. "You're scaring me," I whispered. He shook his head. "I'm fine, just thinking." But he wasn't fine. I could see it in the way he avoided my eyes, in the way his hands trembled slightly even when he clasped them together behind his back. Something weighed on him, something enormous, something spilling into the silence between us, no matter how hard he tried to hide it. The next morning, I found the basement door unlocked, even though we had agreed to keep it closed until we finished unpacking. I asked him about it, and he insisted I must have forgotten to lock it. But I knew I hadn't even gone near it. I wanted to press him, to push for answers, but there was something fragile in his voice that made me hesitate. Weeks passed. The house grew colder even when the heat was on. My husband grew quieter, even when I tried to pull him into conversation. But the strangest thing was that I started feeling watched. Not by him, not by anyone outside, but by the house itself. It began with small things. A chair slightly moved, a window cracked open even when I was sure it was shut, my phone placed somewhere I never put it. I started writing everything down to keep track, but even the notebook would sometimes vanish for a day before reappearing on the counter. Then one afternoon, while he was at work, I heard the whisper. Not faint, not imagined, a clear whisper coming from the basement door. "She must never find out." The same words, the exact tone, the exact cadence, but it wasn't his voice. It was close, startlingly close, but not quite right, like someone trying to imitate him and missing the human warmth beneath it. My blood ran cold. I backed away from the door so fast I nearly tripped. The whisper stopped. The house fell silent. And I realized in that moment that whatever was happening here wasn't just about my husband keeping secrets. It was about something living beneath us, above us, around us, something that didn't want me to know the truth. But fear has a strange way of transforming into determination. That night, while he slept, I crept toward the basement with a flashlight. The air grew colder with each step, and by the time I reached the bottom, my breath was visible. The room was empty, just concrete floors, exposed pipes, and the faint smell of dust. But then I noticed the wall in the far corner, a square outline, faint but deliberate, like the shape of a door sealed shut. My heart pounded. I ran my fingers along the edges and felt the slightest shift of air coming from behind it. A hidden room. Behind me, a floorboard creaked. I spun around, lifting the flashlight, and my husband stood at the bottom of the stairs, his face pale, his eyes wide, the exact expression of someone who just walked in on their worst fear coming true. "What are you doing?" he whispered, but not with anger, with despair. "You tell me," I said. "What's behind the wall?" For a long moment, he didn't speak. I thought he might deny everything. I thought he might laugh, distract, deflect. But instead, he sank onto the steps and buried his face in his hands. "I wanted to protect you," he whispered. "I thought if you never knew, maybe we could still have a normal life." "Knew what?" I demanded, my voice shaking. He lifted his head slowly, and the look in his eyes was unlike anything I had seen. Not fear, not guilt, but something darker, something older, something that didn't belong to him alone. "This house," he said quietly, "isn't empty." A chill raced down my spine. "It remembers." Before I could speak, the sealed wall behind me groaned, as if something inside had heard him, as if it was waking up. And with a slow, dragging hiss, the hidden door began to open. The hidden door opened only an inch, but it was enough to release a breath of icy air that rolled across the floor and wrapped around my ankles like a warning. I stumbled backward, staring at the dark slit in the wall, waiting for something to reach out. A hand, a shadow, a voice. But nothing came. It was the stillness that terrified me most, as if whatever lived inside that hidden space was listening, deciding, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal itself. My husband scrambled to his feet and rushed toward the wall, pushing the door back into place with both hands. The concrete groaned, and he winced as though the pressure hurt him physically. When the seam finally closed and locked into silence again, he turned around with trembling breaths, sweat dripping down the sides of his face despite the cold. "You weren't supposed to see that," he whispered. "And what exactly is that?" I demanded, my voice cracking with fear and anger. His shoulders dropped, as if my question alone added a weight he could no longer carry. "A room," he said softly. "A room that shouldn't exist. A room built by the previous owner for reasons he didn't survive long enough to explain." The basement light flickered, and both of us flinched. Somewhere above us, a faint knock echoed through the pipes. One knock, then another, then silence. My husband swallowed hard. "We need to go upstairs." "No," I said. "Not until you tell me what's happening in this house. Why did you whisper that? Why did you say I must never find out?" He closed his eyes. "Because I was talking to it." A cold shiver cut through me. "To what?" He opened his eyes again, and for the first time since we moved in, he didn't try to hide the truth. "The house isn't haunted the way you think. It's not ghosts or spirits or anything dead. It's alive. It listens. It watches. And sometimes it mimics." I had no breath left. My lungs squeezed painfully as though the air had thickened around me. Mimics, you? And you, he whispered, and anyone who stayed here long enough. It learns voices, it learns habits, it learns fears. It whispers the things we hide from each other. It wants attention, but not in ways a human would. It's like a child that never grew up, stuck between understanding and instinct. "And you knew?" I asked, stepping away from him. "You knew before we moved in?" He looked away, guilt twisting his features. "I found out the first week. I heard it whispering your name in my voice while you were at the store. I heard it humming the song your mother used to sing to you as a child. I heard it say things I've never said, but things it wanted you to believe I did." My heart sank as the memory struck me. That first night when I heard footsteps above the bedroom. The second night when I heard someone close the guest room door. The quiet imitations of my husband's sighs and mutters. The house had been copying him. "And the previous owner?" I asked. His jaw tightened. "They found him in the sealed room. The walls had closed around him. No signs of struggle, no tools, no injuries, just no air." I clapped a hand over my mouth to stifle a scream. "We have to leave," I whispered, "right now." "We can't," he said, grabbing my wrist. "It won't let us." The basement light flickered violently. Then it went out. For a moment we stood in total darkness, but I could feel something in the room with us. Not touching, not breathing, but present. The same presence I had felt late at night, when shadows stretched longer than they should, when walls clicked in ways that didn't match the wind, when doors opened just far enough to peek without being noticed. Something brushed past my leg. Not a hand, not a creature, just space shifting, as if the air itself had mass. I screamed. My husband yanked me up the stairs, slamming the basement door shut behind us. He locked it 3 times, then pushed a cabinet in front of it. His chest heaved, eyes wild, voice cracking as he said, "It's awake. It knows we opened the room." A loud bang slammed against the door, then another. The cabinet shook. I grabbed my phone and ran toward the front door. The lock jammed. The key wouldn't turn. The doorknob wouldn't even budge as it fused to the frame. I pulled and twisted until my palms stung, but it didn't matter. The house had decided. We weren't leaving. My husband slumped onto the floor. "This is why I didn't tell you. I thought if you remained calm, maybe it wouldn't react. Maybe it wouldn't focus on you." "What does it want?" I cried. He looked at me with sorrow so deep it felt bottomless. "It wants us to belong to it. It wants us to stay. It makes sure no one who discovers the truth ever leaves." A soft sound drifted from the living room. A whisper. Not in his voice, not in mine. Something new, something low and melodic, almost tender. "Come downstairs." My blood froze. "It's calling me," I whispered. The lights in the hallway flickered in response. My husband stood abruptly. "Don't answer it. Whatever you do, don't respond." But it was too late. The house already knew it had my attention. A slow, dragging creak echoed through the ceiling, as though something moved across the second floor, searching room by room, inch by inch, for the place where I stood. The whisper came again, closer this time, right behind my ear. "I've been waiting for you." I spun around, but no one was there. Only air, only the faint scent of something old and damp, like forgotten walls or buried memories. My husband grabbed my shoulders. "Listen to me. There's one thing the house can't control. One thing I've been hiding, not from you, but from it." I forced myself to focus on him despite the whispers circling us like invisible threads. "There's a way out," he said, "but it's not through any door." The whisper shifted, suddenly angry, sharp, almost animalistic, like a hiss inside the walls. The air pressure changed, and the chandelier above us rattled violently. "What way?" I asked. He leaned in, lowering his voice to a tremble. "The house isn't just alive. It's connected. It has a heart. And if we can destroy it—" A deafening crash cut him off. The cabinet in front of the basement door slid across the floor as if shoved by an enormous force. The locks clicked open one by one. The door creaked slowly outward. My husband pushed me behind him. "Run upstairs." "No! Do it!" he shouted. The whispering rose into a chorus of overlapping voices mimicking us, mimicking strangers, mimicking things that didn't even sound human. My name echoed from behind the basement door, spoken in a dozen versions of my husband's voice. I ran. The house groaned, its walls trembling, its floors vibrating beneath my feet. Something chased me, not footsteps, but a cold draft, alive and deliberate, swirling at my heels. I reached the top of the stairs just as the lights above me exploded, showering glass behind my back. I dove into the bedroom and slammed the door shut. The whisper seeped through the cracks, coaxing, pleading, threatening. "You'll never leave me. Never." I pressed my hands over my ears, but it didn't matter. The house spoke from everywhere. Then I heard my husband scream. Not a whisper, a real scream, raw, terrified, cut off suddenly. My legs gave out and I collapsed to the floor. The house fell silent. Not peaceful, expectant. Waiting for me to move, waiting for me to come back downstairs, waiting for me to belong to it. For several minutes, I couldn't move. I sat on the bedroom floor with my back pressed against the wall, arms wrapped tightly around my knees, listening for any sign of my husband. But the house had fallen into that suffocating silence again, the kind that felt deliberate, like the walls were holding their breath. The air inside the room was freezing. I could see my breath drifting upward in faint clouds, even though the heater should have been running. My mind raced. I needed to find him. I needed to know he was alive. But the moment I considered opening the bedroom door, the floorboards just outside it creaked as if something leaned its weight against them. And then I heard it again, my name, whispered so gently it almost sounded like a lullaby. But it wasn't his voice. I crawled backward until I hit the far corner of the room. The whispering grew softer, coaxing, patient, as if the house knew I couldn't hide forever. A cold wind swept across the room, and the closet door beside me opened by itself with a slow, tortured groan. I stared at it, shaking. Something dark shifted inside, but when I turned my flashlight toward it, the beam only revealed empty hangers and folded blankets. Still, the sense of being watched didn't fade. I forced myself to take one breath, then another. I needed a plan, any plan. If I stayed in the bedroom, the house would corner me eventually. If I went downstairs, I didn't know what I'd find. The house wanted me to move, but I couldn't let it decide where. I stood up slowly, gripping the flashlight like a weapon. The sound of my heartbeat filled my ears, loud and frantic. Then, from somewhere deep below, I heard my husband's voice. It was faint, weak, strained, but unmistakably his. "Don't come down." My blood iced over. He was alive. "Where are you?" I whispered shakily, knowing he couldn't hear me, but unable to stop myself. The bedroom lights flickered in response, once, twice, and then, all at once, every lamp in the room turned on by itself. The brightness was blinding. I shielded my eyes as the bulbs buzzed and shook violently, casting shadows that trembled along the walls. Then one of the lamps shattered. Glass rained down near my feet. Enough. I couldn't stay locked in a room the house controlled. I grabbed my phone, slid it into my pocket, and made a decision. I had to find him. Whatever the truth was, whatever he had uncovered, whatever he had been hiding, it was the only thing that could help us survive. I cracked the bedroom door open. The hallway outside was dark, except for the faint glow of the nightlight we had plugged in days earlier. The air felt thicker here, heavier, like the house was concentrating its attention on this exact spot. I stepped out slowly. The floor didn't creak. The house was too quiet. As I reached the top of the stairs, I looked down and froze. The basement door was now wide open. No light spilled out from below, only a black, yawning void that seemed to swallow the dim glow from the hallway. It waited like a mouth. And then I heard it again, my husband's voice. "Don't come down." But this time, it wasn't coming from the basement. It was coming from behind me. I spun around so fast I nearly fell down the stairs. The whisper was close, right beside my ear. But when I looked, there was nothing. Only empty air and the faint outline of the bedroom door. The house laughed. Not out loud, not with sound, but with the vibration of the walls, the shifting of the floor, the cold gust of air rushing down the hallway. A laugh that wasn't a laugh, but a feeling, a vibration deep inside the structure. My stomach twisted. It had mimicked him again. But his real voice, I heard it downstairs first, I was sure of it. I took a step toward the basement. The house responded immediately, a low groan rippling through the foundation, like a warning growl. "I'm coming to get you," I whispered to my husband, wherever he was. As I descended the stairs, the temperature dropped with each step. By the time I reached the bottom, the cold cut into my skin like knives. My breath puffed out in shaking clouds. The overhead light flickered, buzzed, then steadied. The basement floor was empty. The cabinets still pushed aside, the secret wall still sealed. But something felt off. Different. I approached the sealed wall slowly. The faint outline was still there, but something had changed. The cement looked wet, as if the wall had been sweating. I placed my palm against it. It vibrated gently beneath my hand, like a heartbeat. The house had a heart. My husband wasn't lying. "Where are you?" I whispered, tears burning behind my eyes. This time, the answer didn't come from mimicked lips or whispering air. It came from deep inside the wall, a muffled thud, a desperate thud, a knock. Weak. Human. My entire body went numb. He was inside. "Hold on!" I screamed, pounding on the wall with both fists. "I hear you! I hear you!" The second knock came, fainter than the first. I needed something to break through. I ran to the workbench against the far wall and grabbed the heaviest tool I could find, a rusted crowbar. My hands trembled so violently I could barely grip it. As I returned to the hidden door outline, the crowbar slipped from my grip and clattered across the floor. I cursed, grabbed it again, and jammed the metal tip into the crease of the wall. I pulled with everything I had. The wall groaned, the cement cracked, dust spilled down. "Hold on!" I cried again, my voice breaking. Another knock. Then a muffled voice. "Don't open it." I froze. It was my husband's voice, but then another voice layered beneath it, deeper, twisted, unnatural, repeating the exact same words a fraction of a second off sync. "Don't open it." The house was speaking with him, or through him, or instead of him. I staggered away from the wall, my heart slamming against my ribs. Tears blurred my vision. I didn't know which voice was real and which wasn't. I didn't know if he was truly behind that wall, or if the house was imitating him to lure me closer. Then something scraped from inside. Not a hand, not a foot. Something dragging, something shifting, something too large for a human body. I stumbled back, dropping the crowbar, shaking uncontrollably. "Please," I whispered. "Please tell me where you are." A voice spoke again from behind the wall. This time, it was only my husband's voice. Soft, broken, terrified. "I'm not behind the wall." I gasped and spun around. And for the first time since the basement door opened, I saw him. He was standing at the foot of the stairs, but his face was wrong. White as bone, eyes wide and empty, his mouth moving in slow, mechanical motions. And the voice coming out of him wasn't human. I couldn't breathe. My husband stood at the foot of the stairs, but everything about him felt wrong, placed, like a puppet arranged into a human shape. His limbs hung too loosely, his neck tilted at an unnatural angle, as if the head wasn't fully connected. And those eyes, hollow, unfocused, glassy, staring straight ahead yet seeing nothing. "Michael?" I whispered. His mouth twitched, just once, then again. Slow, jerky movements like a machine rebooting after years of disuse. His jaw opened too wide, stretching the skin around it painfully, and a sound escaped, a wet, gurgling rattle mixed with a faint echo. "Leave." The voice wasn't his. It wasn't even trying to be his. It was layered, distorted, metallic, rubbery, as if something deep inside the walls was using him like a speaker. His head snapped to the left with a crack. My knees weakened. I gripped the crowbar again only so I wouldn't collapse. He took a step toward me, his foot dragged, the heel scraping against the floor. Something inside him shifted, not bones, not organs, something softer and heavier, like a mass rolling inside an empty shell. "Stop," I whispered, my voice trembling uncontrollably. "Please stop." His arm lifted, but the hand dangled lifelessly from the wrist, folding backward as if there were no bones inside. My stomach twisted. That wasn't my husband. It was something wearing his shape. Something borrowing him. Something learning. We both froze when a deep groan reverberated through the ceiling above us, making the pipes shudder. The air pressure dropped so suddenly my ears popped. Whatever controlled the house was shifting again. Michael's head jerked up toward the ceiling, reacting to the groan like an animal sensing its master. And then, for a split second, less, his real self broke through. His eyes flickered back to life. He mouthed silently, "Run." His lips barely moved, but the word was unmistakable. My heart split open. I surged forward, grabbing his shoulders. "Michael, fight it! Please, fight!" His body convulsed violently under my hands, thrown sideways by an invisible force. He slammed into the wall with a sickening thud. I cried out and rushed toward him, but he lifted his hand, truly his hand, and pushed me away. "Not me," he gasped, voice hoarse, real, desperate. "Don't touch me. It will take you too." A violent shudder ripped through him, bending his spine backward unnaturally. A strangled cry tore from his throat, his voice mixing with the house's voice, overlapping like two broken radios. "No!" I screamed, reaching for him despite what he said. He collapsed onto all fours, trembling, retching, choking on air that seemed too thick to breathe. His fingers clawed at the floor as the shadow of something passed beneath the concrete, moving like a wave beneath him. He lifted his head slowly. Tears streamed down his face. "It's inside the walls," he choked. "It doesn't want to kill us. It wants to keep us, to shape us, to make us reflect it." His voice cracked. "It needs a family." A cold shock ripped through me. The house was alive, but lonely, hungry for connection, hungry for voices, for faces, for copies of the people who lived inside it. And we were its newest toys. Michael's back arched again, a horrible pop echoing through the basement. He screamed in agony, and the lights above us flickered violently as if responding to his suffering. I crawled to him and grabbed his face gently, forcing him to look at me. "Where is your real body?" I whispered. "Where did it take you?" His eyes widened, a moment of clarity, a moment of truth struggling to break free. "It's in the heart," he whispered. "The house keeps what it needs close. It keeps me there." "Where is the heart?" I begged. "Tell me, Michael." The house didn't let him finish. A wave of cold roared through the basement. Every object around us vibrated, the shelves, the pipes, the walls themselves, as if an enormous creature was inhaling. The air thickened, pressing against my chest. Michael's face twisted in horror. "Run!" This time it wasn't a whisper. It was a scream. Not of fear, of love. The basement light exploded above us. Darkness swallowed everything. Something massive surged through the darkness behind me with a rush of air and a sound like steel dragging across stone. I felt it, not touching me, but brushing the space around me. Passing so close, my bones felt frozen from its presence. I grabbed Michael's arm and tried to pull him upright, but he shook his head frantically. "Go," he gasped. "Go now. It's coming." The thing in the dark moved again. A shift, a breath, a presence that felt like hundreds of unseen eyes opening at once. I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over the crowbar. My hands groped blindly for the staircase. And then I heard it. A voice behind me. Not Michael's, not mine. A perfect imitation of my mother's voice. Soft, familiar, gentle. "Sweetheart, come downstairs." I screamed and bolted up the stairs, taking them two at a time, slamming the basement door with every ounce of strength. I locked it, pushed the cabinet back in place, pushed another chair in front of it. My lungs burned. The house hummed, angry, disappointed, almost grieving. The walls exhaled. And then something scraped across the inside of the basement door. Slowly, patiently, as if whatever was down there was simply waiting for me to open it again. I pressed my forehead to the wall and whispered through tears, "Michael, hold on. I'm coming back for you." But the house had already begun to rearrange its hallways, preparing for me, calling me, claiming me. I don't remember how long we stayed like that.
Two people who once loved each other, sitting in the rubble of everything they'd ruined. At some point, the sun went down, and the house dipped into shadow again, the same way it had the first night I heard him whispering. Except now, finally, I understood the truth he had been trying so desperately to bury. When he finally lifted his head, his voice was almost too soft to hear. "Do you hate me?" I let out a slow breath. "I hate what you did, but hate isn't the same as wanting to destroy someone. I want my life back. My real one, not the one you built on secrets." He nodded, wiping his face. "You deserve that." For the first time, he said it without excuses, without pleading, without twisting the story to make himself look better. He said it like a man who finally accepted the consequences of his own choices. I stood, feeling the weight lifting off me one fragile layer at a time. "I'm leaving tonight. I'll send movers for my things. You can stay here. For now." He didn't argue. He didn't beg. A small part of me wondered if he was relieved too, relieved that he no longer had to live inside a lie he'd built so tightly it had almost crushed us both. At the door, he spoke one last time. "I really did love you." I didn't turn back. I hope someday you learn how to love someone without lying to them. When I stepped outside, the air was cold, but it was honest. No whispers, no walls listening, no secrets clawing beneath the floorboards. Just me. Just freedom. I got into my car and drove, the house growing smaller in my rearview mirror until it disappeared completely. A new life didn't wait for me on the other side. Not yet. But the old one had finally ended, and that was enough. 3 months later, the truth came full circle in the most unexpected way. I received a letter, an official one, from the woman he'd been helping, the same woman whose existence he'd hidden to protect me. A woman who had found my email and written only one sentence that truly mattered. "Thank you for leaving him, because now he's finally taking responsibility, for the first time in his life." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Instead, I folded the letter, placed it in a drawer, and opened the window to let the sunlight spill inside my new apartment. I was done living in shadows. I was done living with someone else's secrets. And as the breeze rushed in, carrying nothing but clean air and a quiet future, I realized something I had been too hurt to see before. The moment I walked into that house and heard him whispering, my life didn't fall apart. It finally began.